Good afternoon. My name is Lou Dennis, and I've been asked to explain what we're doing. Some of you, of course, have been involved when we've done this in the past. I remember Elton John several years ago with Geffen, and certainly a couple of years ago with REM out of Georgia. The difference between this one and those was that obviously in those circumstances you had to go to a Holiday Inn or to a specific location in order for this to work. This time we're coming to you from our offices here in Burbank, right around the corner from NBC. And you're sitting in your office, and it's the first time that we're doing this. And we're quite proud. I think we're the first company to do it because we now have the capability of shooting from here, and it goes up to a satellite and then comes down and you're watching it. I also wanted to explain what you're about to watch. You're going to see some footage as the music plays that you probably have seen before. These are not the videos that are going to be made of Little Village. These are just videos that we had access to, and we thought it would be much nicer to listen to the music and to look at moving pictures. After all, if you're using live technology, you might as well have stuff that moves. I think the most important thing is to listen to the music. I think it's going to knock you out as it has several of us. And I think you're going to find that the next 30 or so minutes are most enjoyable. The first thing you're going to see is our own Bill Bentley interviewing Lenny Waronker, an old friend of yours, explaining what the group is about. You'll also see the members of the group, and you'll hear the music. And as I say, the pictures are old. The videos that we make will be different. And we're really thrilled this afternoon to be doing this. And so, ladies and gentlemen, Bill Bentley interviewing Lenny Waronker.
What was the idea behind Little Village making a record together?
It actually started about 3 years ago, and the idea really started from an experience that I had with Mo. George Harrison was making a B-side for a single that was coming out in Germany or something, some obscure thing, and it was an excuse for him to go in the studio with some people that he really loved and respected, and try out an idea that he had, which was to sort of start another band. So he came in with this thing, which was handled with care, and played it for us. And it was clear to both Mo and I that, you know, it was something really special. Thank God we were smart enough to say, no, that's not a B-side. And we talked about, you know, the possibility of him going back to those guys and doing a record. But the interesting thing for me was that he was able to gather up all those people and get them to make a record without really thinking about making a record. It was all about inspiration. There was a common denominator in terms of the musical background. There was a sense among all those members that they were doing something that was real, and I don't know that they even thought about it being a real record until the very end. And going through that experience and seeing what it did for all of them individually really had an impact on me and got me thinking about doing a similar thing with artists that were in the same caliber, but maybe not as successful. And it might be a great marketing tool, possibly, in that you could take 3 or 4 really great musicians who, for whatever reason, didn't have the success that the members of the Wilburys had, but certainly had the talent, and maybe the sum of the parts would equal something very special. So I'd say maybe 6 months after that whole situation, I'd lunch with Nick Lowe, and we were discussing Nick Lowe signing with Reprise and what we were going to do, and we got into a conversation about marketing. It's a funny sort of conversation. Nick was saying, well, what are you going to do and how are you going to market me? And we started talking about the rock pile, and the back of my mind, it was the first chance really to talk about this group, a way of gathering, you know, a handful of really neat people, and he definitely was one of those guys. And we talked about it, because I said, look, Orbison clearly is a beneficiary of that group effort. Tom Petty, I'm sure, will be. And we knew about Dylan. So it made some sense, and we talked about the rock pile as a possibility, maybe restarting it, and I mentioned maybe adding Ry Cooder and Jim Keltner. And Nick was on the nod. I mean, he said, yeah, we'll do that. Absolutely, sure, we can do it. Not believing that it would ever happen. Nick didn't even remember the conversation, but his manager did. So I said, well, the whole card in this is Cooder. You know, getting Cooder in a band is a long shot at best, but let's try. And I knew Ry liked Nick because Nick turned him on to a Chuck Berry song. And anybody that can tell Ry Cooder about an obscure Chuck Berry song is going to get Ry Cooder. So I called Ry, and I remember talking to him. I remember saying, look, just listen to me and don't yell. Just don't yell, because he can get ornery from time to time. And we discussed this thing and made sense to him. The idea of, look, if you get the right people together, one of three things can happen. Or actually, three things could happen. One is you make a record that's no good, and if that happened, we'd burn the tapes. Or you make a really good record and it doesn't do well, but I don't see that as being a bad thing, because good records have a tendency to follow you around. I don't think they really hurt you, even if they don't do well. And of course, then there's the other thing, which is you make a great record and it does well. If that happens, it's your ballgame. You can do whatever you want. It's like a little side business. So he bought into it, you know. And we got Cooder and we got Lowe, and we had Keltner, because Keltner came with Cooder. Getting the fourth member was a little more difficult. Yeah, the rock pile idea really never made sense, because in essence, it really wasn't the rock pile. So the idea then became a trio. We had a trio that I wanted to hang on to. When I talked to Ry, I realized that pinning him down was the real issue at that moment in time. And I said, do we have a trio? And he said, well, we have a trio, but I'm not interested really in a trio. It has to be a quartet. He was talking in musician terms, which was great. You know, it was a good indication that he was serious about it. So there we sat with a trio. And I think that in talking to Nick and letting him know that there was a possibility that something like this could happen, because in fact Ry was interested and Keltner was interested, it knocked him out. And Jake Riviera, I think, was very enthusiastic about it, and finally told somebody about it. And that person, who I think is a booker in Europe, ended up telling Will Botwin, who manages John Hiatt, that these three guys are starting a band: Ry Cooder, Nick Lowe, Jim Keltner. So Hiatt's manager obviously told Hiatt, and Hiatt called Nick and said, if you guys are starting a band and I'm not in this band, I'm going to be pissed off. So that was it. Cooder called me and said, Hiatt called, and we got our quartet. We got the guys. And I thought, yeah, that's interesting. Hiatt, great. Not really knowing what to make of any of it, you know, because we'd thought about it for so long that the fourth member, I don't think, was a reality. And when it finally became this band, it was a tough call. And I remember listening to Bring the Family and thinking, yeah, that's not necessarily what this band is all about. So we had a meeting, and basically I sat there officially and said some silly things like, this has to be, you know, 4 guys doing this, and it's got to be the real thing. There has to be a spirit about it. It's not about making a record. If all the things that we talk about happen, then I think it will be a record. And of course they knew that stuff, and We're being real polite about it, but they weren't about to be a super band. They're not a super group. They had all the elements that you needed to pull this thing off, which was mutual respect, an enormous amount of talent, and a common ground musically. They all understood each other. So we were really lucky in that we were able to get them together, and that all of those elements worked.
The songs were all co-written. How did they collaborate together?
It was really interesting because there were a series of different events that I suppose ended up being ideas. I know that Ry loves John Hiatt as a guitar player. I mean, he really respects him as a musician, but also as a guitar player. And from time to time, when he was working with John, would notice that John would be playing a riff, and Ry would say, you know, you ought to keep that. That sounds like a song. And John would say, sure, I've got it. And Ry said, are you sure you remember? And John said, absolutely. And of course, he would lose it. And so Ry, a couple of years before this thing had started, was doing something with Hiatt, and Hiatt was playing this great guitar riff. And he said, John, there's another one. And John said, don't worry, I got it. And Ry decided at that moment he was going to grab that riff. And I think that was the beginning of the first song, actually. It was Solar Six Panel. Cooder had the riff and threw it back at John and said, what about this? And they started working on it. Well, I know you're accustomed to internal combustion, but your little machine will be running clean with mine. Solar Six Panel. But there was another thing that happened that was really interesting, and that was Keltner. I mean, Keltner, as a songwriter, actually had a major effect on this record. And Jimmy is not your typical normal songwriter. I don't know that he did any songwriting in any of the bands that he's been in, but in this case, he really set the stage because he had all these incredible samples that he messed with over the years. I mean, Keltner's known as this great live drummer, but in fact, technology is really interesting to him. So he was able to take interesting sounds, real sounds, sounds of tin cans and ashtrays and beer cans and whatever else, and play these phenomenal rhythms and make them into sort of these little songs. And Cooder stumbled onto him one night, heard one, and realized that he had this sort of gold mine on it. And the real trick was to choose the right samples, right, and the right programs. So Keltner had about 5 or 6 that the guys really liked, and it ended up being like a wall of sound. It was the lo-fi part of the band in terms of how they were going to go about making the record. And you know, hi-fi, lo-fi, the idea about all that is that you make a record that sounds really good, and at the same time, if you can get it to sound good and shitty at the same time, you're doing something special. So in this day and age of fancy technology, the Keltner aspect of it really played an important role and was a real issue in terms of how they started the songs. I think 5 songs on the album have this sort of interesting wall of weirdness going on. And it put these restrictions that were really important on the band. When you have that kind of talent, guys that have, you know, that gift that they have, focused with specific limitations based on rhythm patterns and sometimes chord changes, and they're locked into that, one of 2 things happens. They either quit because it's too limiting, or they come up with something that's really off the wall and special. And I think in the case of this record, because of the way they set up the writing sessions and the way they went after each song and the general spirit of this whole thing, they landed on their feet.
Going out and get me some sun. I'm gonna collect it, baby. And we can have a whole lot of fun.
Action is Nick's start. He had the idea for the take a little trip down Whittier Boulevard idea. And then it's like, all right, where are we here? It sounded like, it felt like, I always think in terms of places to go, you know. You want to identify the place if you can, just for yourself, at least for me, because I get a kick out of it. It's like road maps are fun to look at, you know. I mean, you want to know where you're at. And then there's all of these neighborhoods out in East LA, and there's places like that, and they're full of action. Some of it's good action, some of it's bad action, but there's lots of stuff going on, a lot of living going on out there. And it is a place that used to be called, they used to talk about El Monte, you know, El Monte Legion Stadium Saturday night. The guy used to scream on the radio, and I used to think, God, that must be something. I'm sitting out here in Santa Monica, age 10, thinking I'm so bored. Can't I go to El Monte Legion Stadium Saturday night? You know, these guys are killing out there. I know it's hot. Where is El Monte? Turns out that's where George Barris had his custom car shop. That's where Paul Bigsby invented the Bigsby trailer brake wang bar on guitar, next to the junkyard. It was right there in El Monte. Moon hubcaps were made there. I didn't know all of that at the time, but you can see there are these places, and they still exist, and it's still something of where people make their own fun, I guess, you know, really. They're not buying it on the way to the pizza from the Cappuccino, to the VCR, to rent the new movie, to go to the noisy restaurant. It's more like, you know, piecing it together, kind of like the lowrider vibe that still, you know, hangs in there.
Except I was doing it kind of lower down. When I thought it up, I was going, well, there's a jumping little place I go, called the Action. So it sounds like a sort of older guy, not quite so hysterical as it's come out.
There's a jumping little place I go, called the Action. Just about a mile or so down the street. And there's a party going on in there, down a lot of funky stairs. And everything will be red till the break of dawn. Now you don't want to walk on down to the Action, 'cause once you get in there, you're gonna want to use your feet. And when the music starts getting high, they're gonna burn up everything you got. But you ain't gonna wanna stop till the break of dawn. They're doing the pony, watch them do the jerk. Then they get down on the floor, and they go to work. Sisters doing the alligator up on the tabletop. Ooh. A lot of four-piece racket don't never stop. We're gonna sign it up way down in Eagle Rock, way out in Montebello, and down Huntington Park, down in El Sereno. Better show 'em what you got. Out on Whittier Boulevard, the action never stops. Down at the Action, meet you down at the Action. Down at the Action, we be getting into some action, satisfaction, yeah. Meet you down at the Action.
Codgers. Well, here's what I think about that. I think when I was a kid, the guys making rock and roll music all looked old enough to be my parents. And the appeal was, what are those people that look like my parents doing, dressed up like that, making that kind of music? And that's always sort of been the draw for me. Seemed like they didn't have to grow up or something.
You took it to heart, that is my love. I thank heaven that I found you. I thank my stars above. The way that it happened, well, it might seem strange, but after the hurting is all done, there comes a change. So I went down into myself, where any fool could see all the love I had to give you wasn't getting out of me. So it was an inside job, but baby, we worked it out. It was an inside job, but baby, we worked it out. Well, I didn't know just what was wrong, but all of my lights went out when you were gone. I called and you came right to my side, but you couldn't help me, sweet baby, was my pride. So I went down into myself, where any fool could see all the love I had to give you wasn't getting out of me, and it was an inside job. Baby, we worked it out. It was an inside job. Baby, we worked it out. Lost in love, now I found. Well, it's from the inside out, and the walls come tumbling down. I didn't surrender, but now I see. Baby, when I turn my love over, sweet love comes back to me. So I went down into myself, where any fool could see all the love I had to give you wasn't getting out of me. Well, it was an inside job. Baby, we worked it out. It was an inside job. Baby, we worked it out. It was an inside job. But baby, we worked it out.
This is a pretty volatile band. I mean, I'll say this because they're not in the room right now. John Hyatt's got a nasty temper. He could be a mean man if he wants to be.
Well, I was the kid sent home from kindergarten, with the note, Mrs. Hyatt, your son does not get along well with other kids.
Ry Cooder could bite your head off in an instant. You heard what he did to me when I tried to get in the door a minute ago. Don't knock like that.
How could anybody be doing that? How could they be doing that? It's just unbelievable. Don't knock like that.
Even Nick, if he had a couple of drinks, look out, because he can jump in your face. Me, the only people I'm nasty to are like my wife, my kids. I treat everybody else beautifully, but I mean, I could have a temper as well, actually. John and I have had a few little bouts, but and Ry and I actually too. Actually, though, Ry backs down with me. I like it. I like the way the whole thing is built. I know who to stay away from, I knew who I could, kind of always, pick on them if I wanted to. And, these things are important in a band,
For people who, whether they've heard it or not, I mean, everybody should hear it, and may one day everybody will hear it, but Sonny Boy Williamson, the great blues harmonica player, who worked all the way from the 30s really to the 70s, I guess, at a certain point in his career, recording for the Chess Brothers in Chicago, had a dispute on tape with Marshall Chess, or Leonard Chess probably, who was the producer and owned the record company. And this is a blues classic. This is the middle of a song called Little Village. Leonard Chess hits the talkback, interrupts the whole thing, stops the song, and gets into it because he obviously doesn't like the tune, can't stand the whole thing, wants to disrupt it. What the hell is this? What are you saying, Little Village? And Sonny Boy, who is not a guy to tamper with, says, well, it's a little village is a small town, in case you didn't know, and so on and so on. You call it your mama if you want to, after I get through with it. It's a great picture into how records are made, what the real issue is here, which is labor versus management a lot of the times, and the blues. And everybody goes around saying, oh, I just love the blues, and isn't it cute and isn't it wonderful? But there's a lot of strange stuff in there. There's a lot of funny things, and why records sounded like they sounded, and who these people were, and what they thought about, and here they are fighting. It's spilling over onto the tape. Now it's on a CD you can go buy, and it's stickered parental guidance because he swears at Leonard Chess, and it's stickered. So we're looking for a name for this thing, and I'm thinking, Little Village, call it your mama. We'll call the group your mama. Call it Little Village. So I ran to the phone. Does everybody know this Sonny Boy talk? Yeah, everybody's heard it in the group. They'd heard it. Does that ring any bells? Say, yeah, Little Village. And there's, concentric rings of possible inference and meaning in there, too. The little village is diverse but unified, and we're forced separate but equal. And we live in our little houses, but we say hi in the middle, And Sonny Boy's thing is classic, and there should be some presence like that behind your efforts. And there are people like that who stand in the background all the time. At least I feel them. I'm always looking over my shoulder. And then finally, we can sample that argument and throw it into a song, which we did do. So if you listen close, you hear him and Leonard fighting in the middle of Don't Bug Me When I'm Working, and it's in the same key, because the guitar player, who's obviously nervous, is playing along with their argument. It's in the same key. So what I really want to do is start these shows that we do with that sampled conversation. I think the stage should go black, the audience should hush up, take their seats, hush up, and then, what the hell's the name of this thing? It's huge, big speakers, I think it should be just so great to have Sonny and Leonard, two blues greats, two music greats, really, kind of let the audience in on what's going on here. And it just, I don't know, it's interesting, it's funny.
Sitting on the line, trying to change your mind. Red light, yellow light, green light, time. You're standing on it, dirty, but she's chilly as a tasty breeze. Ease it over, son, show you how she runs. Screaming like a demon in that quarter-mile comes. Crying case cooking, that's a manifold destiny. Now she might run cold for you, she run hot for me. She runs hot for me. She runs hot for me. She runs for me. But it runs hot, hot for me. Ocean run hot, hot, hot for me. Ocean run hot, hot, hot for me. Ocean run hot.
What's the name of this?
Little village. A little village, motherfucker, a little village.
Motherfucker think they're about a village, you son of a bitch. Nothing in the song has got anything to do with a village.
Well, a small town.
I know what a village is.
Well, all right, goddammit. You don't name them titles. You name it after you. I
Oh,
gotta
yeah,
get
shoot
through with
me,
it, son of a
bitch.
bitch. You name what you want. You name it your mammy if you want her.